Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Ashley Empowers. I'm Ashley, and today we are back with another episode of Dating with Purpose. Dating with Purpose is a series where I interview couples who are keeping God first in their relationship to inspire this generation to pursue healthy relationships. Today I'm so excited to have Alan and Jennifer Parr on this episode. Welcome.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
I'm so happy that you guys are here as well. And I always love to give viewers just a little bit of background on how I know the couples, if I have a history knowing them. So, Jennifer, I met you first, and it was through the singles ministry at One?
Yeah.
Yes.
We were actually in the same life group too.
Yes.
So,
yes. So the same life group at church, and that was like
it was
4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, it was a minute ago.
Because we were both single.
Yes, we were both single.
So we were in a single life group.
Yeah, and now we're both married with a baby girl.
With a baby.
So it's so awesome to see how just God brings everything full circle. But I really just wanted to have you both on the show to share your journey of how God brought you together. And before we jump into that, can you kind of just introduce yourself and give a little bit of background on how you got to meeting your significant other?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll go first. Well,
Tell us a shorter version.
Yeah, I'll tell the shorter version. Well, just a little bit of background from me. My story was very, very interesting because I had a desire to be married from the time I was 22, 23 years old. I was actually engaged once, like when I was 25. But, just really couldn't really settle in on that right girl, that one I felt like I could spend the rest of my life with. And so, unfortunately, I'm not proud of it, but I dated in the wrong way for a long time. Dated different women, didn't always keep their hearts in terms of what, making sure that their heart was the priority and whatnot. Just kind of dating without a purpose, just having a good time, rather be with somebody than not to be with anyone at all. But I got to a point where I realized that that was not a healthy way of dating. And I left, some broken hearts along the way. So I was like, you know what, I need to find a way to date in a way that honors God. And so unfortunately, it took me until I was like 37, 38 to realize how to date in the right way. And so I really started to think about, okay, how can I really protect this woman's heart, pursue her in a way that God would be honored? And so we ended up meeting when I was about 38 years old, and we ended up getting married when I was 40 years old. Actually, on my 40th birthday was our wedding anniversary. So that's just a little bit about my dating history, and I can also talk a little bit later about how we actually met.
Yeah. Well, before we jump into Jennifer, I have a question. So from 25 to 37, were you dating?
I was dating.
Oh, you were?
I was
dating.
Had
relationships?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and I mean, most of the relationships were 3 months, 6 months, had a couple of 2-year, 3-year relationships.
Okay.
But I didn't commit in the relationships oftentimes. I settled many times for a woman that was a good woman, but wasn't somebody that I just felt like I could spend the rest of my life with. Typically, I was looking for physical attraction, looking for spiritual connection, looking for that friendship, emotional connection. And typically there was one thing that I went into a relationship with that I kind of knew was missing, major something. Okay. But I would rather be with somebody than be by myself. And so I basically just dated and settled and had a good time, and really didn't date with a sense of purpose.
Gotcha.
Until a little bit later.
Gotcha. Yeah. And he was picky.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Well, prior to meeting Alan, I dated without a purpose, but we're talking about without an ending, like long relationships. So 5-year relationships, 3-year relationships that I knew weren't going anywhere, but I would hold on to them. That little ounce of hope, I would just hold on. So we met when I was 29, almost 30. They say 30 is like that milestone year, and I just knew something had to change. I was not dating intentionally. Okay. I was just dating. And so, prior to Alan, there were a lot of brokenness, a lot of long relationships, and I was typically the one that was ending up being heartbroken.
Okay.
So, right before I met him, I had just submitted my dating experience to God and said, you know what, I don't think I'm doing it right. There's something that has to change. And I started looking for different characteristics, in a godly man, being intentional with what I share, with dating, no wifey qualities, no wifey benefits, and I'm just a girlfriend. So that's kind of what changed right before I met Alan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were intentional about saying, I want to date a different way.
Yes. And about 2 years prior to meeting Alan, up until before I started, it was not that way at all. I was just dating, giving everything I could to the men that I dated,
Looking for the wrong things.
Looking for the wrong things,
Okay.
not really being intentional. I mean, really just open-ended relationship that we'll just see where this goes.
So did you guys have positive examples of healthy relationships? Like, did your parents stay together?
Yes, and that actually really introduces why I believe I waited until I was 40, because unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I came from a string of divorces in my family. So I won't go down the list, but I'll just say that pretty much everyone in my family, including my cousin, sister, mom, dad, aunts, uncles, have been married multiple times, and unfortunately divorced multiple times as well. And so I never saw firsthand in my home an example of a healthy marriage, a godly marriage. I never even seen my parents kiss each other, like never in my whole life. And so I grew up with this idea that, marriage doesn't work. If you see one thing wrong in somebody, it always reminded me of like my dad's, bad situations. I was like, as soon as I saw something in a woman that reminded me of a bad experience he had, I would just dismiss it and get out of the relationship. So essentially, I didn't have that example.
Gotcha.
And it kind of kept me looking for like that perfect woman.
Right. What about you, Jennifer?
And opposite, all my family members are married and still married. They've been married 30 years, 20 something years. But the difference is they've been married that long, but we never saw my parents fight. Till this day, probably still haven't. They did everything behind kind of closed doors, which gave off the perception of marriage is perfect.
Wow.
Right? Like, yeah, we've been married 35 years and it's been just glory. And I'm like, oh, I want that. So, relationships, I would hold on to them because I'm like, yeah, it's longevity. That's just what happens. And we're perfect. We're right? Like, we're perfect. And because that's what I saw growing up.
Wow. That's a very interesting revelation. So fast forward to you were 37 and you were 30 when you all met. How did you all meet?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I was actually on staff at a church for 6 years, and I just felt like, it was time for God to kind of move me to a different place in terms of my ministry. And so just stepped out on faith. I was like, you know what, I'm going to start visiting other churches and just kind of move on and get some different experiences. Well, the very first time I stepped foot into the church that we're members at, one community church. It was a singles 80s throwback party, and it was Valentine's Day of 2014. So February 14th, 2014. So I go into the party, and literally the very first face that I see is my wife. And she had this afro on and stuff like that, this little throwback outfit, 80s throwback. And there was something, we only spoke for about 5, 6, 7 minutes that night. But there was something different about the conversation that I felt leaving there that I really had never felt before. And it was the weirdest thing, only a 5-minute conversation. And I was actually with the guy that happened to be the best man in our wedding. And I left that night. She didn't know this at the time. And I told him, I was like, man, there's something really special about that woman. I want to get to know her better. And so that's kind of how it got started. But the journey was crazy from between there and when we got married.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the journey, Jennifer.
Yeah, well, there was a journey because that night, I know he noticed me, and it's not that I didn't notice him, but I was there to serve. I seriously was there to serve. I was a greeter that night, and I said, I used to go to the singles events, and like the women to men ratio was like 90-1.
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
I'm like, I'm not coming to these events to look for a man. I'm really coming to serve.
Yeah.
So, we chatted, but I didn't remember our conversation as much as he did. For him, he was just somebody that was coming to the event, and, just welcomed him. So I had actually already made plans to move to D.C. So I specifically told God, do not bring me anybody in Texas. Why? Because I'm leaving and I don't plan on coming back. And that's what began this journey because, in his mind, he was hoping that I would stay. And in my mind, I was just living in a season where I really wanted God to stretch me, focusing on me and my relationship with God and not quote unquote chasing men.
Gotcha. So how did it happen? So you saw each other at the Valentine's Day 80s party.
Yeah.
And then
We started dating, I'd say, for like a month and a half, 2 months.
After
And
that?
After that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we met on Valentine's Day. We started dating, I want to say around
2 months.
April
Yeah,
or something
May.
like
It
that,
was
May
May.
time frame. And so that's when we officially started dating, and we dated for about 2 months. So I'm thinking that my game is strong enough to keep this
keep her
woman
in
in
Dallas.
Texas. I'm pouring it on. I'm taking her out to dinner. I'm doing all this stuff. And I'm thinking for sure she realizes that we have this connection that I never experienced before. And I'm thinking she's going to stay here in Texas. Well, little did I know, I'll let her finish it.
I was convinced that I needed to leave and go to DC. So no
you
matter
left.
how much, we had kind of talked and he shared his feelings, I never forget that conversation we had. It was a difficult one. And I told him, I said, I'm leaving and I'm going to DC. So that's what began the journey, because we hadn't been in a long distance relationship.
Neither one
I
of
had
us.
never been in a long distance relationship. I know he hadn't. So this was going to be something new. Like, do we want to end this? Because remember, my experience was I held on to relationships. And this was going to be a change. So we had the conversation and we decided that, okay, we're going to be intentional, meaning we have to date every month. We have to meet up every month. Either I come to you, you come down here, but we are not going to just see where this goes.
Okay. So
And-
how did that work out?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was tough. I'm not gonna lie, because when you're in love with someone and you're already in the same city, you're used to spending time with each other, and then she goes off. I'll be honest, I think it was harder for me at the beginning because she was going off to a new experience, experiencing DC and all that DC has to offer, the freedom, having fun, living this single life, chic life. I mean, and I admit I went up there and enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
But, like for me, I'm like, okay, the love of my life is leaving. And so it was hard because I had to figure out how could I support her and be happy for her and all the different new things she was experiencing, new job, new church, new life group, all that in DC. But at the same time, be true to myself, like, okay, DC represents, for me, us being separated from each other. So it was like, I had to constantly figure out how could I support you, but also, it was hard for me as well.
Yeah.
So we dated, we visited each other once a month. It cost a lot of money because we want to be intentional. We had goals about saving ourselves from marriage. So I got a hotel every time I visited her.
Okay, wait. So
yes.
let's slow down there.
Yes.
So you guys were intentional, dating every month. You're waiting for marriage. You got separate. You stayed at your place. You got a hotel every single time.
Yes.
Every single time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if anybody has been to DC, the hotels are not cheap.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that was what was, different, is I had never had that intentionality in a man in pursuing me. This was different. I was used to, just say, okay, I'm going to leave. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. We'll see what this happens. But he was very intentional. And when he would come down and visit, he would stay in a hotel. When I would come down, because we kind of alternated, my parents lived here, so I would stay with them. That way, if we went out or anything, I knew I had to still come back home to my parents.
Because her dad wasn't playing.
Okay.
So it just helped us have accountability around us, so that we knew, okay, this is what we're committed to, so we have to make sure that we set ourselves up to where we're accountable.
So fast forward to the decision. How long were you in DC?
I was in DC for exactly 1 year.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so for 1 year you all were long distance.
Yeah.
So how did you get back to Texas?
That's a great question. So I'll be honest, I moved to DC in July. I did not really get confirmation that he was the one for me until February. So even though we were dating and I knew there was something different about him and I loved how we were just so intentional, I still did not have that confidence. If he proposed to me, would I say yes? I just didn't.
Yeah.
A lot of that was fear. I had been praying for a man like him. And then now God sent it and I was like, wait. Am I going to be a good wife?
Wow.
Am I even ready to be a good wife? So that fear just played along in my mind. The enemy had a field day with it. And it wasn't until I finally just let it loose, I was like, wait a minute. God's been showing me these signs about him that I missed because of fear. And so February, I remember I called my best friend. I told her and I said, I think Colin's the one, you know? And that's it. I never told him.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, I don't know if it even got back to him. But a month later, I came down to visit because we were having date night, and he had just won an award in his district, and we came down to celebrate, not knowing he was planning to propose to me the next day.
Wow.
Yes. So
you proposed in what month?
April.
Okay.
Yeah, it was April.
April, yeah.
And then my job, I was working at a job in DC, and they had made some changes, and the job actually ended a year after I moved there.
After it started.
Wow.
Yes, and so of course there was an opportunity for a regional advancement, but I was like, no, I'm coming back now to Texas because
I'm engaged.
I'm engaged.
I'll put a ring on it.
Yes. So
That was the only thing that was gonna bring me back.
Yeah.
right. So Alan, why Jennifer? Why did you know it was her how were you 37 still?
At this point, I'm 39. Yeah,
39.
At this point, yeah.
So after all the relationships you've been through, the short, the long, why Jennifer?
Yeah, so one of the prayers that I had along the way when I was single was, Lord, give me, whoever my wife is out there, give me a unique kind of love for her so that I'll be able to identify her. Because if I meet a girl and I feel the same way about her that I did about all the other girls I dated, then how could I discern that this is the one I needed to spend the rest of my life with, right? If it was more like a take it or leave it, she's good, but if she's not around, I'm okay, then I wouldn't really be able to know. But with my wife, I pray, I said, Lord, give me a desire for this woman that I'm unlike anything I've ever had. And for her, like, people talk about getting lovesick. I know that's not healthy, but I remember feeling like when we were apart, like I really missed her. I loved talking to her. We had 7-hour conversation one time, like, because we were long distance. All we had was the phone. I mean, so we talked all the time. I had fun. We laughed. We joked. We were attracted to each other. We had same goals. We had, things in common. Both came from families that were, very compatible, accepted each other. So it just seemed like everything that was important on my list, if you will, kind of lined up, and it was easy to check off everything. And I had a peace about it as well. That's another thing. I had no reservations at all about putting a ring on her finger and spending the rest of my life with her. And I still don't.
Awesome. Yes.
Because I'm stuck with you and you're stuck with me.
Yes. Well, I love that so much. And I just want to touch on the waiting until marriage. So were you all successful with that?
We were.
Mm-hmm.
We were.
Wow.
It was a struggle.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a struggle, especially because coming into the relationship, that had always been a goal, but never succeeded in it. Mm-hmm. And so when I got to a season, and we both had different seasons, where we definitely wanted to stay celibate, and it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So when I finally made that decision, and I was like, you know what, I am sticking to this, I needed someone who had that same goal.
Wow.
Not someone who was going to wait for me to get in a weak moment and prowl on that.
Yeah.
So, yes, I mean, if you want to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we're not going to act like it was easy. It was very difficult journey because neither one of us were virgins, obviously, coming into the relationship. And then dating long distance, it was tough because like you're missing the person for a whole month. You got all this build up, you're on the phone, really attracted to each other. So when you see each other, it's kind of like a catch-22. On one hand, the long distance helps you because you got all this time where you're not all up on each other.
Yeah.
And cuddling up on the couch all the time, putting yourselves in tempting situations. But then again, it's like when you finally do see the person after a month, it's very, very tempting to want to just express yourself as much as you can, but we really, in the midst of the struggles that we had during the dating, the temptations that were there every time we got together, we're very attracted to each other. But praise God, we were able to say when we stood at that altar and got married, we were able to, our first night was our wedding night. Yeah.
That's so inspiring. That is so inspiring. So now that you all are married and you have a daughter, how has the relationship changed, and how have you had to be intentional now that you are married and have a child?
Oh, that is a great question.
Oh, yeah.
That is a great question. You want to
go ahead?
share?
You can go first.
Yeah, in a couple things. One, we've had to have difficult conversations. We started off our engagement with having difficult conversations about money, about sex, and I don't think that's changed, we have to be intentional. So, for example, whenever you have a child, it changes everything. That child becomes your focus. But you have to remember, one, who you created the child with, but two, I have to think of a servant mentality, and I'm serving this child, making sure she has her needs. My husband has needs as well. We have needs as a couple. So we've been intentional about our date night. We continue that to where my mother watches her on Fridays, and we were still able to connect, still able to just, get out and not talk about work or the baby, and just, connect about us. And then we've also, I know that's one. I don't know if you want to share maybe a couple of it.
Yeah, whenever you're dating someone, the man's focus is to pursue. He will do anything to get that woman if it's the right woman. But something happens when you get married. As soon as you say I do, the man's focus switches from pursuit to provide.
Absolutely.
And it's like, okay, I have her now. I don't need to quote unquote pursue her anymore to get her. I have her. Now it's like, how am I going to provide for my family? How am I going to be what she needs? And I think that's where the struggle comes in, because you do still need to pursue your wife, even though you are married to her. And it's easy to get into this relaxed where, okay, you do your thing, I do my thing, because I got to provide, I got to make the money and stuff like that. And you can get away, if you're not careful, from all the things that you did to bring yourselves together. Right. And then you can, distance can creep in there, resentment, and marriage is real. I'm gonna lie, it's real.
Yeah.
Real.
He still has needs. I still have needs.
Right.
Just because you have a baby doesn't mean those needs disappear.
Exactly.
They don't.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy that you touched on that, because some people don't realize how important it is to be intentional.
Absolutely.
And how you change and grow through each season, from single to engaged to married to being parents. So thank you so much for touching on that. I have two more questions before we wrap up. One, Jennifer, I know that you are half Nigerian, half Sierra Leone. Okay.
Yes.
And Alan, you are American. Yeah. How has merging your cultures had an effect on your relationship?
Well, other than her eating cassava leaves in the house that smell up the whole house, everything is good. Yeah, let's just say that I have learned to appreciate a lot about her culture, including some of the foods that come along with it. Some of them she's still working on me on, but it's interesting. People think, well, she's black, I'm black, what's the big deal? Well, it's a different culture. She is African, I'm African American, but I have really learned to appreciate a lot of things about her culture. I mean, the fact that they celebrate everything, they have these weddings and stuff that go till 3 or 4 in the morning, and they dance and they enjoy community, and time is not always like we got to get here, got to get there. It's like the fellowship and spending time connecting. So I've learned to really appreciate a lot of things about her culture and family, because I didn't have that close-knit family growing up as much as she did in the community as well. So
and for him being African American, it wasn't something I was opposed to in dating, but I definitely grew up seeing solid characters in men, solid character in men, and so I wasn't sure if God would bring that to me in a white man and a black man. I definitely wanted it in an African man, if I'm being honest. I did, because that's what I saw growing up.
Okay.
But I got to a point to where I put Christianity over culture, right? And take out Christianity, just call it faith over culture.
Yeah.
And I was really looking for something that would sustain, characters that would sustain a man, and not just,
repeating tradition.
Right, exactly, tradition. So that was what attracted me, to him. Because
I love that.
I was like, let me set aside this culture and look at some other characteristics.
Yeah.
And also, if I'm open to embracing your culture,
also,
that was huge for her.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there were guys who were open to embrace it, but they were horrible, So I was like, I have to pick one. I'm not getting both of best worlds.
And I even saw, like, your wedding, you had a traditional aspect to your wedding. So and I saw you in the that was awesome. So I did look at some of you guys' pictures of the traditional and the white wedding. So that's really awesome. So the last thing that I want you guys to leave viewers with is, now that you've gone through being single, getting married later in life,
Yeah.
getting married, having a child, what would you say to someone who is single and making marriage an idol?
Okay, so
Just anxious. They want to get married, and
It's
now you're on the
real.
other side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, I'll just start by saying marriage is great. Marriage is a blessing. Don't listen to, the negative haters, naysayers that be like, marriage is horrible. No, marriage is a blessing. Even on my worst days as a married man, it's better than my best days as a single man, because I have somebody to go through life with. And so let me just start off by saying that. But I would say, make sure you are ready for marriage. Make sure you have emotional maturity.
That's
Please.
so good.
That's the biggest
That's
thing.
so
If you still holding grudges against people, if you can't say I'm sorry, if you don't forgive people quickly, if you are selfish, if you still want to live an independent life where it's about me, it's my money, or my time, you don't want to be accountable to people for your schedule, all this stuff. I mean, this is where marriage gets real. If you can't put up with people and love them the way they are, when they don't have makeup on, when they don't look in their best, when they gain weight, it gets real.
Yes.
So if you're not ready for what it is when it gets real, then, just remain single, because it's better to wait than to later on wish that you had.
Yes. That is
Awesome.
so true. That is so true. And just being intentional. I think for me, I had to stop giving wifey qualities to boyfriends. I just did. I had to. And seeing some form of celibacy to me was a reflection of self-control. So on
That's so good.
on the back end of marriage now, I see that. Like, self-control. Okay, I'm 9 months. We might not be able to be intimate, or we can, but does he have self-control to make it through that season? We
So
have
good.
a newborn. Oh, she's 6 months now, but the characters I looked for on the front end, I'm now seeing on the back end. But I had to make sure I was looking for that and not focusing on chemistry.
Yeah.
Chemistry is important. You do have to like the person. You have to be attracted to the person, but you definitely need to make sure there are certain characteristics you're looking for that you will see on the back end of marriage. So now he is patient. I don't have to worry that, like, oh, if I'm sick and I'm just out of it.
Yeah.
He's not going to go looking somewhere else.
Gotcha.
So I think those are some characters I looked for on the front end that now on the back end have helped
Yes.
in our tough times.
Yeah, I love those answers. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for sharing
you're
that.
welcome.
Well, as we wrap up, I just want to thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to share your story. I am positive that it's going to be a blessing to everyone who watches it. Now, Alan, you have a ministry, The Beat. It's blessed my life, and it's blessed so many other people's lives, and I want to bless other viewers' lives to know about what that is. So can you tell what you both do, because I know you're behind the scenes, Jennifer, with The Beat.
Yeah, so the BEAT stands for Biblical Encouragement and Truth. And basically, just to keep it kind of short, basically it's an idea that I feel like God put on my heart about 2-3 years ago, to basically take the Word of God to places where people are. So instead of the typical way that we do churches, you invite people to come to where the church is within the four walls. But the way this society is going, technology, the world, everything's going tech, and everything's going online. So the idea that God gave me is, don't just wait and bring people to where the Word of God is in the church. Take it to where they are. So put it on their news feeds, put it on their YouTube, so that they're on news feed, they're on your Facebook. Oh, okay, what's that video about? Should couples live together? Oh, let me click on that and see what that's all about. And so really just, also maintaining a biblical perspective on everything. And that was a big burden for me, because I feel like sometimes, we can get away from the Bible, but I want to bring a biblical perspective to current relevant issues. So,
yes, and I will link that. What's your website?
Yeah, so the Beat, if you go to the YouTube and just do The Beat by Alan Parr, or The Beat AGP, my initials, then they can view it there, or they can go to my website, alanparr.com.
Okay, and I will be sure to link all of his information below, as well as Jennifer's, so you guys can check out his videos. Y'all, they're awesome. They're on relevant topics. Should you guys live together? Just pretty much everything you can imagine. He breaks it down so concise and provides biblical references. So it's extremely informative. So I'll link his information down below. And I just want to thank you guys again for taking time to watch this video. If you have recommendations for other couples, feel free to email me at info@ashleyempowers.com, and we'll see you in the next episode. All right, y'all, that was amazing. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.